Hey guys, welcome back to Reader's Workshop. Today we're going to be reading Extreme Animals, the Toughest Creatures on Earth. So remember that we don't always read nonfiction from cover to cover. Instead, we like to read the parts that interest us. We can use nonfiction text features like table of contents or index to figure it out. I already looked and this book doesn't have a table of contents. It just jumps right in. So I went back to check out the index. And the index gives me a list of the different things that are in here. I see polar bears. I like polar bears. I see silver ants, deserts, and I can go back and go to the page number beside each of the things that are interesting to me and read just that because we don't have to read it cover to cover. We're going to get started by reading about polar bears first because they're one of my favorite animals. So let's get started. Now, I am going to go through. I like really making sure that I'm looking at the pictures, looking at the different images and diagrams and text features I see. Here I look on page 6, and I'm not really sure what these pictures mean yet. I see that it is a very small amount of food floating in space, heat, cold. So I'm wondering if these animals live in extreme situations. So let's get started and get to reading. We humans are a bunch of wimps. We can't stand the cold. We can't stand the heat. We can't live without food or water. And just a few minutes without air is enough to finish us off. Luckily, not all life is so fragile. All over the planet, there are animals and plants that relish the sort of conditions that would kill a human quicker than you can say coffin. Oh, this is a cool page. Kind of turned sideways. Keeping out the freeze. Let's start at the top. The top of our world, the Arctic region, where the North Pole is. And I can look right here and see this diagram shows me exactly where the Arctic region, the North Pole is. Up there, it's so cold in the winter that the entire Arctic Ocean freezes over with ice that is yards thick. The inside of a freezer is around 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but the Arctic can be much colder, down to negative 75 degrees Fahrenheit. A bracing negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit is about normal for an Arctic's winter day. At that temperature, your bare flesh would freeze solid in about 60 seconds. To have any chance at all of survival, you would need to wear a hat, an extra hat, a down jacket and a fleece sweater, gloves, thermal underwear, padded pants, several pairs of socks, thick boots. Without all these warm layers, you'd be dead in minutes. With them, you might just last a few days. So as I read that, I see that the Arctic sounds very cold. I wonder who or what lives in the Arctic and how they survive. The next page is about polar bears. When we read nonfiction, we need to think about what we already know. So I want you to write down a stop and jot about something you already know about polar bears. Go ahead and pause, write that down, and then you can push play. I wrote that I know polar bears have an added layer that keeps them warm. I've read a bunch of books about them, and I know that it's their flesh or their fur or something that keeps them protected from the cold. So let's keep reading about polar bears to see if what we already know is true. Yet polar bears stay constantly cozy in the nude. That's because their birthday suits work better than our clothes. Instead of thermal underwear, polar bears have a 3-inch layer of fat underneath their skin. over that, they have a double layer of fur, which has an extra thick, extra trick for beating cold. Each hair is hollow and traps warm air like a mini quilt. So I needed to think about what hollow meant so I could understand this. Hollow is when the inside is empty, like a straw is hollow. So their fur, it's kind of cool, is hollow so that warm air can get trapped inside of it. Polar bear skin is special too. It's black. Dark colors absorb more heat than light colors. Just take a walk in a black t shirt on a hot day if you don't believe it. So, any warmth that the fur traps soaks right into the bear's body. This all works so well that it fooled some scientists who had decided that the best way to count bears was to scan the snow from a plane with a heat sensitive camera. The snag was that the polar bear's body heat is so locked in that the outside of the fur is the same temperature as the snow. So the only thing that showed up was the occasional polar bear nose, since they're not covered in fur. So I love this diagram because it really did help me understand a little bit better how the polar bear works to stay warm. They have 3 full inches of fat, and then they have one layer of fur and a second layer of fur. The words on this page also helped me understand this picture because those are the scientists trying to take pictures of the polar bears. They're saying, I think I can see something. So I want you to stop and jot about something new you learned about a polar bear. See if it matched what you did. You can start by typing, I think, and finishing up with something you learned from this page. Great job. I'm going to write, I think polar bears, extra fat, and double layers of fur keep them safe. And actually, I'm pretty impressed with myself that that kind of matches my stop and jot from before. I just learned a lot more details with this book